Hello.
Hello.
You pick a direction. Two different directions.
Good day,
You.
mate. Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Right? They don't say that, apparently, in Australia. They don't even use the word shrimp. Everyone I know in Australia says prawn.
Prawn? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another
Prawn.
one. Yes. You just had tacos, Darkwing. I want some tacos.
Dang.
I love
That sounds pretty
tacos.
good. I just had a burrito.
I haven't had tacos in forever. There's this place in Lansing called Famous Taco. I don't think it's very famous because it's only in Lansing.
Fair enough.
But man,
they're worthy of it.
Oh my gosh, they're so good. And back in the day, they had these potato tacos. They had like diced potato
That sounds good.
in the taco.
That sounds like a good idea.
The meat and the cheese and the tortilla was like fried in oil, so it was greasy and good, you know?
Yeah.
So good.
Wow.
Man, now I want Famous Taco. Man, Darkwing, you make me want tacos.
Wow, that does sound pretty good.
That does, yes. Welcome, everyone. Yeah. Welcome to Don't Worry When Saddy, I think is how it's said. Yeah. Zay in the chat says when Saddy. When Saddy.
When
Saddy?
What happened to the D?
There's a D. A D. When Saddy.
Wind?
No, when
Saddy?
When Saddy.
Oh, the D is that. Oh, yeah, the D.
There's a D.
D.
There's a D at the end.
Okay, yeah. Got it. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
However you want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. This is our Wednesday show that we do on Wednesday.
Oh, that's great, Zay. Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah, English isn't really Englishing today. We're working on it. You know, we're gonna do better.
We'll
Yes. Super Neon Blue is speaking Australian, which is kind of like English, but kind of ish.
Mm-hmm. They try. They try. They fall short, when it comes to the letter R.
The R.
And sometimes they're a little extra credit when it comes to the letter R too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between R and R2?
So R2 is when you put the R where it doesn't belong.
Oh.
They do that a lot. And then R is where your R is supposed to be, and they don't do that one.
They don't do that one, but they do. Yes.
Yeah.
They do that in Boston too.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's so funny because Boston and Australian are not alike at all.
They're not even close. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, they're so different. I want to hear a Bostalian accent.
A Bostalian.
I want to hear
an Australian accent that's the boss, man. It's like boss.
Well, hopefully it is. I would call it the boss. We need someone who was Australian and they moved to Boston for like 10 years, or it's the other way around.
Yeah,
they were from Boston and they moved to Australia for like 10 years.
I don't know. It's good.
That person.
I wonder. See, because I feel like the Boston accent is like a permanent one. Like if you grow up there, like that's how you talk. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any getting away from it. But I don't know. Is Australian the same way? Or is Australian like more adaptable?
Australian is a strong sound. I don't know.
It is. Can we mix a Russian and Scottish accent, please? What?
Why? I feel like I've done that.
I don't know.
I feel like I've done that on accident.
So what do we have that's Russian? I'm going for the Toblestein.
Oh, wow. That's Zarya?
Yes. And she's Russian. And
yeah, she is.
There's a new hero in Overwatch coming out in like 2 weeks that is Scottish.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That sounds great.
Yeah. But that would be fun. Mixing a Russian.
I don't
know how you do it. Because that might be Scottish. Scottish laddie.
There was like a 2-month period where I had listened to a lot of Scottish accent and I couldn't stop being Scottish, and now I can't even do the accent at all.
See, but here's the question. Is it Scottish or is it Scotch?
Scotch? No, it's not Scotch, because that's a type of tape. Or a type of drink.
Yeah.
Or a type of caramel.
Scottish.
Yeah, Scottish.
So there's Scottish. In Scotland, they've got Scotch, and they speak Scottish.
Scot. Well, did they not say the T?
I don't think so. Then
why is it in their word?
And many times, well, at the beginning of a word, they will use the T, but it's almost like every time I've heard a Scottish accent, like the T in the middle of the word is just sound, you know?
Yeah. So they chose to name themselves the thing that they don't do in the middle of their word.
No, they didn't name themselves T.
They didn't. No, they should have named themselves like Super Neon Blue just spelled it, Sco-ish rather than
Sco-ish. Yeah, Scottish.
Scottish. Scottish. It's like a country. It's like the thing that we don't do with English is we don't pronounce the R's. So let's have as many R's inside of our word as possible.
In English,
you know,
we don't pronounce R's. R.
No, like an English accent that doesn't pronounce R. Like an English accent that doesn't pronounce R's, right?
Yeah.
And then the name that they named their own country has the R in it that they don't even pronounce.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think
so. They've done that with this T, you know?
Yes. And
the T is silent.
Yes, Pear, you are right. They say British. British. And Scottish.
Yeah.
And Irish. Well, that doesn't have a T in it.
Accents.
Yes.
Irish. See, now they're fine. The Irish people are good.
Right.
They've named their country something that they can actually pronounce.
Yes.
The Scottish and the British have named themselves something that they cannot pronounce.
Well, because before it was called Britannia or something. So what would that have been?
Right?
Britannia.
Britannia. Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was Britannia. Wow. Props to Ireland, yeah.
British without the first R might be taken the wrong way. Oh, I see what you...
Yeah. Yeah.
Should listen to Geordie accents?
Yeah.
What's a Geordie? Geordie. Or is it Geordie? Geordie?
Glad you demonstrated it. Yeah.
I didn't quite do the whole thing. I caught myself in the middle of it.
That's pretty good.
From Northeast England. Okay. I guess I don't know anybody from Northeast England. Everybody I know that lives in England is kind of in the south.
Oh,
but
really?
Isn't Scotland in the Northeast, or is that the Northwest?
That's, I believe, Northeast. But
yeah, I don't know. Geography, man. I have to like study more geography. That's what needs to happen, apparently. So, anyway, welcome everybody to Don't Worry Wednesday. We like to have a good time. This show is all about you guys and your topics, the stuff going on in your lives. If you have something you'd like us to talk about, you can put it in the chat there. You can go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, and submit a topic, and you may or may not decide to fill in your name if you want, and it'll be anonymous. We get a lot where people just don't put anything in.
Yeah, huh? Scotland is just north, basically, and northwest.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Northwest-ish.
Like directly north of, yeah.
I gotcha.
Directly north and a little bit west.
Darkwing knows people from Hawaii and Texas, and that's it. Oh, and
that's the only people you know?
And where you live right now. You know, hey, you know us.
And we're from Michigan.
Yeah, except Ryan's from Australia now, too.
Yeah. Am I from Australia?
When you come back to the U.S., you will be coming from Australia. So
yeah, I will. That's true.
Yes. Do you really know us? I don't know. I mean, you know who we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know more about us than people who don't know us.
Yeah, it's true. And you know more about us than most strangers.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, Pear. I too know people from all over the world. And that's the beauty of the age we live in. We live in this age where, we have real-time communication across the world.
Yeah.
I'm in Michigan. Ryan is in Australia. We are on a real-time voice call, and we play games together.
That's right. Pretty wild.
And it's not like we're 14 hours apart. There's a 14-hour time difference.
Yeah.
Actually, is it 16 hours now? It's 16 now.
Yeah, 16 right now.
Yeah.
16-hour time difference.
Yep.
But if we were trying to, the fastest way...
How long did it take you to get there? How long?
It's about 20... Okay, so do you want to include, car rides? And train rides?
From destination to destination.
Okay.
From... Yo, Saule.
Let's say it's actually kind of close to 30 hours.
30 hours.
Yeah. It's probably more like 28.
And most of that is on a plane.
Yeah. 16 hours of that is on one plane ride. Mm-hmm. Then there's one or two other sets of plane rides that are about 3 hours. Well, total about 3 hours, 4 hours. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of it is driving and riding a train and etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or no, there's also a decent portion of waiting around in an airport. So maybe 5 hours of waiting around in an airport.
And depending on the airport, you might have to do some walking. You might have to ride an escalator or two. There's escalator riding.
That's true. Are you walking when you're escalator? Are you walking when you're escalating, or are you?
It depends. Depends on how aggressive of an escalator you are.
Yeah. Well, I like to walk on the escalators, but not all of them. I know I love escalators too. When I was a kid, I was like, escalator. I was so happy. I'm still happy to see.
I know
one.
they're exciting.
As an adult,
right?
I just get giddy and say, how can you not just get escalators are so cool.
Yeah. I got to have an escalator experience this past weekend. It was so great. There were escalators all over the place. We went to Cincinnati, Ohio, of all places. Went and saw Baby Metal in concert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how did that go?
Oh, it was awesome. It was so great. They did great.
That's great. Awesome.
Yeah, and but we stayed in this hotel. We stayed on the 18th floor of a hotel right downtown in Cincinnati, and it was this really fancy place, right? You'd park your car in front of the place, and then you hand some random guy your keys, and then you don't think about your car for the whole rest of the weekend.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you wonder in the back of your mind, you're like, what's that?
Yeah.
Maybe I should be thinking about that.
Not only do you hand him your keys, you also hand him some money for a tip.
Amazing.
It's amazing. But we go into the lobby of this hotel, and there's like 3 floors. Actually, no, 5. 5 floors connected by escalators.
Wow.
So that was fun.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. Oh, man. Escalators. Apparently the chat was disconnected for a second. Now, here we go. Yeah, and here's another funny thing about tall buildings in downtown areas. We stayed on the 18th floor, but it actually was the 17th floor because there's no floor 13.
Well, no floor 13, right.
It's like...
It's ridiculous that still actually is a thing.
I know, it's weird. You go in and, looked at all the things, and I didn't even notice until my son was like, oh, yeah, there's no floor 13. There's no 13 button on here. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Why was there no floor 13? It's because 13 is apparently an unlucky number, and so nobody will ever want to stay on floor 13, and so they just don't put 13 on. Yeah.
Some weird superstition, I don't know where it started, and it's like the Friday 13th kind of thing. It's the number 13 for some reason people think is cursed.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
Well, I think Friday the 13th is a bad day. Like, right? That's like the unlucky day, and
nothing. I've had plenty of days that were Friday on the 13th, and just like a normal day. I don't understand, but that's just some superstition I don't really understand.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And I was talking to some friends about it, and like apparently that's a thing, like all over the United States, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go to see now Lansing doesn't have high-rise buildings very much, so you know they don't get up that high very much. But yeah, so you go to big city where they've got these high-rise buildings, and there's no floor 13. Wait,
every month that starts with Sunday will have a Friday 13th. Oh, nice.
Hey,
thought about that.
Wow. All right.
That's how you know.
Cool.
I never really even considered.
Yep. I never thought of that before. I just always was like, oh, look, Friday the 13th. Here it is. I never thought to look at like that the month started with Sunday. One time when I was younger, my teacher got mad at me because I wrote a number that was bad. Uh-oh.
Like 666 or something? I don't understand.
You know, there's all kinds of bad numbers.
Sure. I said, yep, okay.
All right. Yeah, so yeah, December this year starts on a Sunday. Pretty wild. So now we got a Friday the 13th in December. It's going to be great. And Saul, you had 13 as your number when you played soccer. You were like tempting the fates, right? Like,
yeah, you're just waiting to get hit in the head with that ball. You know what, Darkwing? I just feel like I would have to like retort to that teacher and just be like, you realize you get that idea that that's a bad number from the Bible, but yet the Bible is the one that has the numbers in there. Like it says 666 is a bad number, so me writing 666 doesn't make it any more worse. I can write the number.
Than the writer of the Bible, right?
Yeah, right. Like the person who wrote the Bible, like put the 666 in there.
That would have been the Apostle John who wrote that book.
There you go. Yeah, that's true. And if you wanna berate him, go ahead, but you can't berate me.
Yeah. Yeah, and good luck. He was here like 2,000 years ago.
2,000 years ago, yeah, he's a bit dead now, so.
Oh, you were bad luck for the other team, were you, Saule? Yeah, you did get hit in the head hard by the ball a few times. Well, it's soccer.
Don't we all?
No, did you get hit in the head by the ball, or did you hit the ball with your head?
Right, that is different.
Because, yeah, like, man, oh man. So now the chat's disconnected again. This is hilarious. And successfully
Where do you see that?
Connected. It's in my chat. It says, chat disconnected. Please wait while we try to reconnect.
For me, it's not happening.
Oh, good. I'm glad for you. Apparently my internet's doing
Does it happen to anybody else?
It's YouTube being silly with me.
It's a valid distinction. Indeed.
Actually, I need a new computer.
Oh.
That's what it basically means.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Darkwing says, my dad told me when I got home for next time I see her to say, you're a full-grown adult, get over it. Yes. Yes.
Oh man.
And
oh man.
Is the number 4 considered bad in Japan? Do you know this?
Yes, because yes.
Because what's wrong with 4?
It's close to the word that means death. I think. Someone can correct me on that. I think that's the reason.
Okay. Oh, wow. So you got knocked over 3 times because someone kicked the ball into the back of your head. Oh, man. You're playing some really awesome defense with the back of your head.
Yeah.
You're like, get that
wow,
out of
how did
here.
You do that?
Bang.
Wow, bam.
Yes. Okay. The word for 4 is she, and so is the word for death.
There we go. Okay, so I was correct.
All right. Well, that explains it. So, anyway, guys, we are not therapists. We're not professional counselors.
We've made it. We've made it back to Don't Worry Wednesday.
Yes.
Amazing.
We're not therapists. We're not counselors. We're not doctors, lawyers, police officers, judges, football players, or sanitation
acrobatic
workers.
Artists. Oh, there you go.
We're none of that stuff. But we are here to help. We want to help in any way we possibly can. Oh, the other part of the legal disclaimer is, you probably shouldn't listen to anything we say. All the stuff we have to say is for entertainment purposes only, and blah, 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 blah. Read the fine print. It says all the stuff you don't want to hear. And yeah, that's it. So
nice.
Now you can go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, submit a topic, and we'd be happy to talk about it. Or you can put it in the chat if you got something you want us to talk about. We're happy to talk about whatever. We love you guys. And yeah. Oh, thank you, Saule. Thank you for putting that in the chat.
You're amazing.
Awesome. 4 is the gateway to the afterlife. Wow.
Yeah, that's awful.
Whoa.
I really had a hard time with soccer.
Someone hit my stomach hard with a soccer ball when I was a kid. My stomach is still sensitive to touch. Wow. Wow. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's rough. And the dodgeball to the face thing. Swollen for 3 days or something. Wow.
That was dark.
I would, if I was to make a suggestion, I would stay away from sports. Stay away from physical activities. Just all of them at this point. No, I'm kidding.
Well, don't tell my youngest son that. He's quite an athlete. He plays all the sports.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
But yeah, I mean, if you
insist.
It's okay. Just hey, here's the thing about when you're alive and living.
Bubble wrap.
Yeah. Stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason that Don't Worry Wednesday exists, is because stuff happens, and sometimes you're not talking about it. Sometimes you're thrown off balance and something needs to get talked about. We'd be happy to help. Hero got hit in the head with a soccer ball in middle school. One of the moments I was standing in the field. Next, I was lying in the grass with a circle of heads around me. A circle, yeah. They're all looking down at you going, is he okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is he okay? Oh my God. He hit you on the head with a bat?
Ow.
Yeah, don't hang out with the neighbors.
Yeah.
At least not those neighbors.
Why don't you hang out with us anymore? Because you literally hit me in the head with a metal bat. Do you remember that?
Wow.
We'll do it again. No, I can't trust you. You hit me also with a soccer ball. And yeah.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Wait, Darkwing, you have to press your B key 17 times for it to work? Uh-oh, did you spill something on it?
Before.
I actually know how to fix those. If it's a mechanical keyboard, a lot of times I can get in there and fix it. I got to do that. I got to do that with my one kid's keyboard but he spilled root beer on his keyboard, right? And so then we dried it, cleaned it as best we could. But then eventually, like, his D key was kind of sticking, and that's a real bugger because when you're a gamer,
that one's used a lot.
D is one of those, right? So, one of your laptops can't press the letter R. Yeah, hey, it happens. But yeah, I took it all apart, unsoldered it, did all that, and like cleaned it all out. Got in there with a special little tool. And, cleaned it, actually got it to work again, which I was really happy about because, yeah, replacing that keyboard would just take forever due to the company that we got it from.
Yeah, that's true. And it's really expensive.
Yeah. Yep.
Like keeping R on my clipboard? Yeah. That's funny.
That's great. All right. Well, what do you say we do a show? What do you say we do? Don't worry.
Let's do it. That's
good idea.
A really great idea.
All right.
Yeah. Now we're like half an hour in. Let's do that.
Yeah, we got some topics. We've got one here from Darkwing. Did we do this one last time?
We haven't done this one.
Darkwing, you're here. We have a topic from you from way back in September, and I think Oh, you don't know what it is?
I don't know what it is. Yep. I know you don't.
I was just gonna ask. All right. Well, cool. Now we're gonna do it because you're here, and it says you wanted to be here for it. So now you're gonna be as surprised as us.
Yes.
It's gonna be great. So, all right. It's called Undue Guilt. And I will get it put up on the screen, and I will read it aloud so you guys can read along with me. But here we go. So this is Undue Guilt from Darkwing. And it says, every time something bad happens, I feel responsible. And some of it isn't... Oh, wait. Let me start over. Every time something bad happens, I feel responsible. And some of it isn't, and I know that. But it feels like it's my fault. And maybe it's because the people in my life make it feel that way. I want it to stop feeling like it's my fault. Is there a way to do so without becoming rude and thinking nothing is my fault? That's not what I want either. I just want to stop feeling guilty for the things I shouldn't feel guilty about. From Darkwing. This is great. Mm-hmm. This is, you know what? I'm really glad you posted this topic. This is something that I've struggled with quite a bit, actually. And yeah, like it's weird. Like sometimes you just automatically take responsibility, or you take things personally, or when somebody's upset about something, it feels like it's directed at you, and so then you take it personally and feel like it's your fault. And I don't know, sometimes it's weird. I think I go through phases of struggling with this, and it might depend on the person who says something too. Sometimes I just don't care because I don't really know the person very well, and it's not that big a deal anyway, and so I'm just like, whatever, right? But then sometimes, like if I have a close relationship with somebody and then they say something that's bothering them, I will be a lot more likely to take that personally and think that it's something that I need to fix or something that I did wrong or whatever. And it can be a real challenge to deal with. But sometimes as you think through it, and I think you have on here, you say every time something bad happens, you feel responsible, at least for some of it. And yeah, I definitely understand that feeling. And part of that was because there were people in my life that made it seem like it was my fault a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, maybe you might be kind of like me, Darkwing. Maybe you just want people to be happy and have a good life and all that kind of stuff. And so you want to try and help in any way possible. And so when somebody comes to you with a complaint of something going on in the world around them or whatever, you want to help make it better. And so part of that desire leads to the feeling that you're somewhat responsible. And I don't know. I've had to learn to tell myself, hey, you know what? There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. If I am responsible, I can apologize. Or if I did something, you know, that hurt somebody or whatever, I can apologize. But a lot of times what's done is done, and a situation is what it is, and we can't change what happened. Now, we can change things moving forward a lot of times. We can make adjustments and help things move in a better direction. But yeah, even when something is our fault, a lot of times once it's done, there's nothing we can do to change what happened. And so what we have to do is just figure out how to either repent or let it go, and then think, okay, with this situation that we're in now, how do we move forward in the best way possible? And I found that when you can learn how to just let go of things, whether it's your fault or not, then you can move forward and you can make adjustments a lot better. But if we get shackled by this undue guilt, it can be really difficult to break free from. So I know that Ryan is really good at moving forward. He's really good. He's been really good at helping me move forward and helping me to see other perspectives on how to do this and how to think, okay, well, yep, that happened. This is how it is, and we can't change it. So it's like, how do we move forward? And he's got really good perspective on that. So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him talk because I want to hear his voice too. And he's really, I mean, look at that guy. I need to get him on the full screen because
wow.
I mean, look at that. Look at that guy. He's, ooh.
That's some
good looking guy right there.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Joe. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I mean, I hope I can help, but actually one thing I want to do, Darkwing, is present self able to give your past self any advice on this? Rather, you say you don't really remember asking this topic, and that's totally fine. Do you think you've overcome this a bit? And if so, what are some of the tips that you'd give to anyone else who might be struggling with this, for example? That'd be really interesting to know or see your perspective on it. And or even if you're not completely through it, have you found some nuggets that are helping you that are useful? Please feel free to share. There we go. I said it.
Good job.
Wow, that was weird.
You made it.
My brain didn't know how to put those words together. All right. Well, yeah. So this is a very good topic, and I think guilt is something that we've talked about many times on this show. And guilt is important. Guilt is a good thing, and I don't think you want to snuff it out, right? Also, taking responsibility for things is important too, but it really matters a lot whether it's actually your fault and not your fault. Like, it's really important to distinguish that. How do you distinguish that? Other than just through logic and just realizing, like, well, I didn't have the control over this. I couldn't change this if I wanted to, you know. Obviously there's that, and that's important to reflect on. I think when you are experiencing guilt, you can let your brain do a lot of harm, but you can also let your brain do a lot of good. Okay? And so I can't necessarily at the moment think perfectly of how to stop thinking like everything is your fault, though maybe I can get to that in a little bit and focus my attention there. But I think for now, the best thing I can do for you is when you do feel guilty, it's important to take your brain to specific places so that you prevent yourself from continuing to make this activity a habit of taking guilt from everything and also processing it in a way that's unhealthy. Okay. So my advice to you would be, when you feel guilty, actually, I'm going to read what you said first. You said, maybe a little. The only thing I can think of is you need to recognize when someone is telling something is your fault because they are too afraid to admit they blame themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay,
yes.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
It's very true.
There are many people who do
common.
that. Yes. That's very common. Yeah, a lot of people put blame, even if it's not their fault. People don't know where to put blame, but they want to put blame somewhere because it makes them feel like, aha, this is why. And that is somehow, when you can point to saying, this is why this, there's some amount of relief in that, even if the accusation is not fair, it's untrue or unjust, right? But yeah, you're right. A lot of times people are pointing fingers because they're too afraid to point fingers at themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true, Darkwing. It's quite common. So when you're feeling guilt, how you process that is really important, okay? Because like I said, guilt can be a tool of your greatest enemy, and that could be you, right? It could be the devil's playground, so to speak, where you sit there in your guilt and you feel bad and you want that bad feeling to justify doing it. You're like, I deserve this feeling of feeling bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sit here until I've paid my price or I've paid my dues. And you sit there and you're just feeling bad and it's doing nothing good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you will end up sitting there until either something or someone pulls you out of it, or you decide for yourself that you can stay there for as long as you want. It's never going to justify this feeling of guilt, right? So rather than that, when you feel guilty, the first and best thing you can do is examine. And when you examine yourself and the scenarios, it can help you to figure out that it's not your fault sometimes. So sometimes you can experience guilt, and the first thing that you need to do is examine yourself and be like, okay, what did I do? What did I do that was wrong, and why was it wrong? And you can really examine that. And sometimes you might find, wait, that's not something I have control over. That's not something that I could have changed. That's not something that I did that was intended to be mean. Like, there are things that you do and other people take offense, but it doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just means that there's better ways to do it that are less offensive, but it doesn't mean that what you did was inherently evil, right? You're just speaking out loud. And a lot of times when we speak out loud, we end up stepping on each other, and that happens. It's normal. That's nothing to be ashamed about. That's something to go, okay, how could I do this better? You can feel a certain amount of guilt that leads you into being a better at discussing these points of issues and things like that, or figuring out when you should bring things up or not bring things up in order not to, hurt people. But at the same time, if you have no intention to hurt people, then it's not that you've done anything necessarily evil, because you're not in the mind frame of like intending to do bad, right? So if you can figure those things out in your head, it can lighten the load. It can help you figure out where you're actually guilty and where you're not guilty, right? Because you want to separate that out as best you can. You want to define what you're actually guilty for the very best you can. Why? Because guilt is made for us to improve ourselves, right? The whole point of guilt is that it's a tool for self-improvement, but it can be a tool for self-destruction if you don't utilize it when you have it.
Yes.
So when you feel guilt and you go, okay, how do I use this for self-improvement? Figure out, what areas do I need to improve on? Well, before you can figure out what areas you need to improve on, you have to figure out where you're actually guilty. What the very to the most specific you can get it. And then also maybe to the deepest root of the problem, right? Identify that, so then you can go, okay, this area is where I actually need to work on myself in. I need to make sure that, whatever it is, right? But a lot of times, if you're digging down and you find yourself going, wait, that's not accurate, that's not fair, that's not realistic, that's not even true, or that's not whatever, you might just end up like creating a really healthy habit of distinguishing whether, because I don't necessarily know how to, other than through habits, your problem is you keep on feeling guilty for things that are wrong. I can try to give you habits to make it so that you don't feel like you're wrong when things bad happen. When things happen, I mean. But guilt is an important thing, and you don't want to get rid of it entirely. And it's okay to take that into consideration. When things go wrong, I think it is important to go, did I do something wrong here? And think about it for a second. Is there something I could have done that was better, even if I did nothing wrong? It's like, you can be 100% in the right, and you did you didn't do anything wrong, but at the same time, you could have done more. You could have done something better, but there's no reason to feel guilt for it, right? Because you didn't actually do anything wrong. So it's important to get in the habit of, when you feel guilty for something, take a moment to yourself. And if you're with a bunch of people, right? Let's say you're in the thick of it, right? Darkwing, you're in the thick of it, like as in something is going on real time and suddenly something happens and you feel guilty, right? Don't be afraid to be like, hold on, I need to just think about this for a second. And like pause the conversation or pause whatever's going on. And it's okay to do that. Just say, hold on, I just need to think about this for a second. Because you can say, I need to think about this for a second. I feel like I've done something wrong here. People will respect that. Then you take the moment to think like, was I in the wrong? Did I intend to do bad? How did I end up here? You know, what, like, if I am in the wrong, how did I get here? Right? Ask yourself important questions to identify where you actually might be in the wrong, and also identify that you probably aren't in the wrong most of the time. It's not your fault. It's not your responsibility a lot of times, right? It's not your responsibility to... It is not your responsibility... Sorry, hold on, let me... Other people's emotions are not your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's theirs.
Yes.
Right? So if other people are unhappy, that doesn't mean you did something wrong, because it's not your responsibility. However, if other people are unhappy, that doesn't mean that it isn't your fault, right? So that's why we really do have to identify these things. Other people could be unhappy because you actually did something bad. But other people could just be unhappy because they took it the wrong way. Other people could be unhappy because they're just unhappy people. Or they seek out the negatives in every scenario to make themselves feel bad, so that they can point fingers at people and whatever, right? So that they can control other people through guilt and stuff like that, right? So utilize guilt, utilize your own guilt for the progression of self-good. Don't allow guilt to be the means of someone else's control over you. Mm-hmm. Because they're not responsible for you.
Right.
And you're not responsible for them and their happiness. Yeah, I really needed this one today. Thanks, Past Me. Yeah. So that's sort of my best, my best stab at this right now is orient yourself towards growth in this experience. Whenever you feel guilt, you go, guilt, the purpose of guilt is self-improvement, self-growth, moving myself ahead to become a better, less guilty person, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. A better, less guilty person, like as in I'm doing less bad things. And if you can't find something that's actually bad that you've done, there's a chance that you could just dismiss it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we don't feel guilty for the bad things we are doing because we don't recognize they're bad, mm-hmm. right? So it's important to always journey through life and seeking out the positive end, because if you're going through life and you don't seek out the positive end to things, you're going, discernment, right? If you aren't going to get the positive ends of things, life is just going to be life, mm-hmm. and things will be bad or good, and you don't really have a say over it. So as you go through life, if you focus on the positives, right, you amplify the positives. You can act on them if you see them. And so when you identify guilt, you have a chance to act on guilt because you see it, right? We don't always see it where it belongs. And sometimes we see it where it doesn't belong. Like sometimes we feel guilty for things that aren't our fault, mm-hmm. right? So when you experience it, it is important to go, let's examine this. Let's take time, even if it takes like 30 minutes of my time. Let's really dig down and think about this and figure out what the heck I did wrong so that I can make the best of this life I possibly can and make this world a better place for the people around me. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times, like, guilt comes from offending or doing offense, rather, not offending, but having an offensive... We do something that is bad towards another person or to ourselves. And so guilt is really good to help us guide us into a better world and a better future. But you have to utilize it for that. Mm-hmm. So, yep, whenever you go into that moment of self-thought, like, what did I actually do wrong? Think about the fact that what you're intending to do is make life better for yourself and life better for everybody around you. Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing you need to pull out of it. You do not need to pull out of how much punishment should I receive? Mm-hmm. Do I need to give them like a whip to whip me in the back with? Mm-hmm. Like, do I need to like lay down and prostrate myself in front of them and apologize? Like, those are like, some amount of repentance is important, But the real important thing, the actually most important thing, is that your intention is to improve yourself and the world around you. And that does include honest feeling of repentance, honest feeling of like, I wish I had never done that.
Yes.
Right? And that's where you want to get, right? That feeling of, I wish I never had done that. That is not the kind of person I want to be. It's not the kind of world I want to see, right? Then you take that with you, right? And you act on it and you do better from now on, right? It's really what guilt is for. Mm-hmm. And don't use it as a weapon against yourself. Don't use it as a weapon against others by making them feel guilty. Don't use guilt as a weapon ever. Mm-hmm. Especially against yourself, and that's the most common offense. That's the most common weapon people are using, guilt against themselves. So guilt is not a weapon. It's a shield. Guilt is not a weapon, it is a shield. And it should be used as a shield to protect you and others, not as a weapon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tool, right? So, yeah, that's a lot. I'm going to give it over to Joe.
I don't think that was enough.
Fair enough.
I think that was very well said. I don't even know how I'm supposed to follow that, because that was very poignant and awesome. And you can take a lot from that, Darkwing, and actually anybody who's listening to this, because I think, like Ryan was talking about, this is a pretty common thing, you know, like,
yeah,
we all experience guilt for sure. But I think the first, I love where you started the first step, Ryan, where it was like, okay, you know, the first step is examine. Like, really dig into what happened. And like, okay, did I do something? If I did I intend to be harmful? Right? Or was it a mistake? And, you know, like, so where was my heart at in all of this stuff? And, you know, guilt is a really, really good... not only is it a great tool, but it's also a really good sign that you have a conscience.
Yeah, can I just say one thing on that?
Yeah.
Guilt is the companion to love. Guilt is about love. Guilt points towards love at all times. And if your guilt isn't pointing towards love, like people who do not have love in their heart whatsoever, they don't feel guilt. They don't care what they do to other people around them. They don't care what happens even to themselves sometimes. They don't have guilt, right? Guilt is the companion to love, and it's supposed to point towards love at all times.
It's interesting you say that.
Yeah, though people use it as a weapon.
Yeah,
people
because what if you're in a quote unquote love relationship and they're always using guilt as a weapon against you, right? Like, right. Because that happens a lot too.
But that's you're loving, so you feel the guilt, but they're not loving, and that's why they use it as a weapon, right? So, yeah,
it's very interesting, and but you're right. You know, this self-accusing, you know, nature that we have, you know, it can be really, really difficult to live with, and it's weird because sometimes people seem to go through life and not have a care in the world about what they do to hurt somebody else.
Sure.
And then deny if they do something wrong or whatever, right? Because they can't, they don't want to handle thinking that they've done something wrong ever. And so it can become this, it can become a crazy thing, right? So, but it kind of stinks for them. The people who are like that, who don't seem to experience guilt, or at least don't give any, you know, like they can do no wrong, right? And they just go through life creating mess after mess after mess, right? Hurting people all around them and not even caring, right? Like, they cannot grow.
Right.
Until they learn to admit that they have some kind of thing that needs some improvement. Because why would you grow if you didn't need to improve? Right? But I'd like to think that deep down somewhere in the quiet of their hearts, there's, you know, they know. But a lot of times we're just afraid to admit that we did something wrong. I know I am. I struggle with that too, right? I don't like to admit being wrong. I don't like to be shown that I'm wrong. But here's the thing. If I'm never wrong, I can never grow. Right? If I don't ever make a mistake, or if I don't ever have some wrong intent, or if I don't ever experience that guilt, then how am I ever going to grow? However, we can get shackled with it. And I think this is one of the things we want to help you get, unpacked, Darkwing, is that when it's undue, and you don't want to live your life in this guilt feeling. You want to be able to process it, use it for that growth that it's there for, and then be able to move forward past it, to grow past it, right? So here's the thing. Even let's say the guilt is absolutely due. Like, you have done something wrong. Not only did you do something wrong, but you had ill intent as well. You intended to hurt somebody or whatever it was. You intended the wrong. And a lot of times we just make mistakes, because I think a lot of us are pretty good-natured most of the time, or we don't understand all the full ramifications of the things that we're doing, and so we just do them, and then somebody gets hurt, and then it's like, or something bad happens, and we didn't realize we were going to create such a mess, right? But we intended to do the thing that actually hurt, right? So anyway, let's say that's the case, that the guilt is appropriate. Even then, we don't want to be shackled to it forever. Even then, it's not an assignment for us forever. It's not an assignment of who we are as a person. It's something we did that we can, as Ryan said, examine and grow from. And that's one of the best things. One of the reasons I like being Catholic is because we have the sacrament of confession, which is exactly what we're talking about, is exactly what that sacrament is for. It's so you can recognize that the things you do not identify who you are as a person. They're two separate things. Now, what we do and what we say can reflect who we are at that time. They can expose us for who we are, but it's not who we are. And so we need to learn to make that distinction of the things that I do are not who I am. And I can dismiss those things that I've done and not do them anymore, right? That's where repentance comes into play. Yes, I did something wrong. I want to not do that again. And so we repent. We turn from doing that thing and we grow and try and do better, right? So even then, the guilt is there to help us move past it and then to be gone. However, we're so good at dredging up our own past and accusing ourselves of the things that we did in the past, right? And we're also very good at a lot of times, if you're like me, you're good at taking responsibility for things that have nothing to do with you, right? Sometimes things happen, I had nothing to do with it, but somebody comes to me and they're upset, and I feel guilty about it, right? But there was nothing I could have done. And I didn't do anything wrong. So what's the appropriate response then? You know, a lot of times I will apologize. I learned this when I was a property inspector because I would take pictures. People were having trouble with their mortgage, right? And so I would show up and make sure that their house was occupied, so that was my job. The mortgage companies would send me out to verify that a house was still occupied, so then the bank didn't have to come in and like, take care of the house because they abandoned it or whatever, right? So anyway, I would show up and people would be mad that I was there because of their situation, their mortgage situation. And I got really good at apologizing. And I would say, man, I am so sorry this is happening. And let me be the one to apologize, because most of the time when you call your bank, nobody there is going to apologize. So let me be the one to apologize, because I'm sorry. This is a really painful thing. I'm sorry that this is happening. And, but I didn't do anything wrong in that situation. I was just doing my job, right? But they would a lot of times direct their anger at me because I was the one there. They were upset about their situation. I show up. I'm a representative of that situation. And so then they unload all of their frustration and stress and everything at that moment onto the person that's there, which is me. So I got really good at apologizing, even though I didn't do anything wrong. And I would say, I am so sorry. And I know nobody else is going to apologize. So let me apologize on their behalf. I'm so sorry. And I wouldn't say, I'm sorry you are upset, or I'm sorry you are stuck in this situation, or I'm sorry. Anytime, I always have to check myself. If I'm about to say the words, I'm sorry you, fill in the blank, that's a very insincere feeling apology. At least to the receiver of it. Because if I go around saying, I'm sorry you got hurt, well, what does that say? If somebody says to me, I'm sorry you got hurt, well, it's like, oh, I did something wrong by getting hurt.
Right.
It puts the responsibility on me. So that's not even a real apology. That's more of an accusation than an apology. But at any rate, Darkwing, it's going to be okay. This is a great time for you to grow. Like Ryan said, I would go back and listen to what Ryan had to say multiple times, because there was so much wisdom packed into that short period of time that Ryan was talking. And I think it's been laid out as good as it can be, the solution to all of this. Because whether it's due or it's not, the guilt can be used for growth. And you can look at that situation, though, and maybe you're getting hung up at the examine step. Maybe something bad happens. Someone comes to you and they're upset, and you skip over the examining part, or maybe don't dig into the examining part to figure out, oh, wait, I had nothing to do with this. It didn't have anything to do with me, and so I don't really need to feel guilty. I can still feel compassion for that person. I can still feel empathy for them. Absolutely. And I can help them, but it's not something that I need to feel guilty for, because I didn't do anything. I didn't have anything to do with it. Right? Or I didn't do anything wrong. And so if you can take those steps to examine, and then you're like, oh, I had nothing to do with this, but man, that really stinks that it happened for them. And so what I can do is I can be kind, and I can be loving, and I can have empathy. If there is something that I did that I could have done better, I can use that as a step towards growth, which is great. And all of these things can make us grow into better and better people. Hey, Kendra, how's it going? It's good to see you. But I don't know. I don't have much more. I was listening to you, Ryan, and I'm like, you're covering every single base.
Well, I think what you said was important too, though, for sure.
Oh, well, thank you.
That's good.
Thank you. Pear, it's like you're not taking responsibility for something that's not your fault. You're feeling compassion for someone being hurt. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yep. Because that happens. And sometimes people are hurt and it feels like they're taking it out on us. But they're just hijacked and they're, venting or whatever. And I've had that happen a lot of times, and that becomes a moment of discernment, like Super Neon Blue mentioned, discernment. Where it's like, okay, they're just venting. They're not directing this at me. And also, sometimes, even when they're directing something at you, it's not really you they're upset about. Because we don't know what's going on in the rest of their life. I've had people come to me and say all kinds of weird, wacko stuff. Even close friends. And make me feel bad about something I was doing or whatever. And then it took me a while, but sometimes I'd have to go back and think about it and be like, oh, well, they're under a lot of stress right now. So, of course, all these little things are going to bother them, and this just happened to be one of them right now, you know?
Sure.
And it's not because I was doing something really that bad. It's just that they're under a lot of stress. And so my thing was just another thing for them to feel uncomfortable with or whatever, right? So I don't know. Ryan, did you have anything else to talk about on this one?
Yeah, just a tiny bit. Okay. You know what you're just saying? Yeah, I think certain personalities, like Darkwing, maybe this is you, but people are more willing to just point at you and blame you for things because of your personality. And it doesn't mean you need to change your personality. It just means that they feel more open to you and that they're not going to get as much backlash from you if they do say things, if that makes sense. Like, for example, for Joe in his case, right? People might be going through a hard time, and then Joe does this one little thing, and then it's like Joe can recognize that and thinking about it, like, oh yeah, they're going through a hard time. So all of these things add up, and they see me do this one thing, and they're gonna freak out at me for doing this one thing like one time ever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are probably gonna do that to you, Darkwing, because they feel comfortable around you,
right?
Enough to point it out, because in their brain, they know that you're the kind of person that they can tell something to, and you aren't going to run away from them, betray them, try to attack them back, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they know that about you, which is a good thing. That's a very good thing. You just have to know yourself that sometimes people don't mean to be evil, but they are. And so you just have to let it go. When I was growing up, me and my brother used to say this phrase, and I don't necessarily recommend it, but it is because it's sort of not kind. It's a little dismissive. But my brother and I used to say, they're just freaking out. They're just freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we do this, oh man, that person's going to freak out. So we had this phrase meaning freak out, right? Mm-hmm. They're just freaking out. That person's going to freak out. And what it meant is they're going to be emotional and maybe irrational, right? Emotional and irrational over an issue, overly so, right? And that's all it was. And it's like they're just having a little freak out section or a little freak out session. We know it will be over, and then you'll be fine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so sometimes you just have to recognize, like, certain people are freak out people,
mm-hmm.
and certain people are not. And so when you identify who the freak out people are, you just like that. You know what? From once in a while, something's gonna happen, and they're just gonna have a freak out session, mm-hmm. and then literally like 15 minutes later, they won't even care.
Mm-hmm.
They won't even they're like, oh, I'm past that. You're still thinking about that? Nah, dude. Nah, I'm way over it, dude.
Right.
They're like, you feel like you're continuing to feel guilty about that? That was like 5 minutes ago, dude.
Right. How can you be why hold on to bygones?
yeah. So you're going to probably experience that, Darkwing. Just know that it's not a personal thing. It's not a personal thing. That's a them thing. Okay. And there are all sorts of different kinds of people. And so if you're kind of in the camp that I guess Joe and I tend to be in, just know that sometimes that's how people are. You don't have to take it personally. They're just having a little freak out session, and soon enough it'll be over and they won't even care anymore. So yeah, alrighty. And then yeah, I guess there was like one other little thing. I was thinking, Joe mentioned if you're having a hard time with the stage of discernment, or the time where you're actually thinking about it and examining yourself and examining the situation and figuring out, am I actually guilty? What am I guilty of? That sort of thing. If you're having trouble with that, that doesn't mean you can't do it. The thing is, if you spend time doing it, this is what's going to happen. If you spend time doing it, as you spend more and more time doing it, you're going to get better at it, like anything. But here's the interesting thing. If you choose, every time you feel guilty, take a moment, think about this. What am I guilty of? Etc. Think your thoughts, figure it out, define things, right? If you do that every time, eventually what's going to happen to you is your subconscious mind is going to run with that and take over. And what I mean is, at some point in your life, if you keep on doing that, at some point, maybe like a couple of months from now, okay, whenever something happens whenever something bad happens, your brain will immediately go, okay, examine what happened, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you're not guilty. Like, your brain is just going to do it the speed of light. Or it will be like, okay, what happened? This. Okay, self-examine, boom. And it's going to do all of this in like literally like 3 milliseconds. And then your response is going to be at least helpful, or at least initially helpful. And so my point is, if you do this, it will become a habit. And it won't be the habit of not feeling... It won't be the habit of not feeling responsible or not feeling guilty. Instead, what it will be the habit of, when something bad happens, asking yourself immediately, am I responsible? Am I guilty? What am I guilty of? What happened? All of these questions. That's what's going to happen first. And so you will no longer be in a position where you're in the habit of taking responsibility. Instead, you'll be in the habit of examining in like milliseconds time, is this your responsibility? Did you do something wrong? And what is it? And now, here's the thing. There will always be times, no matter how good you get at this, and no matter how much of a habit you make of it, there are definitely still going to be times where you need to go into recluse mode and really figure it out. Okay? So don't abandon that act if it starts to become a habit. Still continue it. Because there are times where you really do need to spend time digging into it and figuring it out and going, you know what? I felt guilty for like a millisecond, but then I figured out I wasn't. But it's kind of lingering here and there every once in a while. It's in the back of my head. I'm going to take some time and really, really sit here with it. Sometimes you're going to need to do that. So if you're on this journey, know that it's going to get easier. And if you're having trouble right now making those discernments, figuring that out, that's okay. It's because you've not done it, or you haven't done it very much. So that's normal. Don't feel like, I guess I'm just the kind of personality that doesn't have those kinds of thoughts and can't do them. It's not that. It's that you need to spend time with it to get good at it, just like anybody. So that's my last statement. Don't give up if it's not working right away, because it needs time to flourish and to grow as a skill, because it is a bit of a skill.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I don't know about you, Ryan. I certainly don't have it all the way figured out. It still takes me a while of thinking through things sometimes.
Yeah. No, it does for me too. It's, for me, like certain things like, there are times where, there are definitely times where I'm like, okay, I literally like, give me an hour, like, and other times where it's just like, someone's like, says something like, and then I'm like, why would I feel guilty about that?
Right.
I didn't do anything wrong. I know I didn't do anything wrong. Let's just walk through it, you and me right now. This. See where that leads? And I'm like, I didn't do anything wrong here. And I don't usually act like that to the person, but my point is, some things become really quickly identifiable to you, and other things are going to take a while, no matter how long you've lived this life.
It's true. Because some things are complex.
Oh, yeah.
And they require us to sift through it for a while, chew on it for a while, and think of different angles and all that, you know? So it's okay. And
thinking of the other person's perspective is a really huge, helpful tool, you know, in all of this. So, that takes a lot of time to learn.
Yeah, I like what you said, Super Neon Blue. If your guilt is not helping you, you got to let it go, IMO. And I would agree. If it's not helping you, figure out how to let it go. And sometimes it takes, sometimes it's not easy to let go. And we have to learn to repent if we did something wrong. And we need to learn to forgive ourselves. That's like generally been the hardest person I've had to forgive. You know?
Yeah.
It's pretty easy for me to forgive anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, but like when it comes to myself, I have a really hard time forgiving myself. And so that's something that I have been really working at learning, and I'm getting better at it, but I'm still not quite all the way there, right?
Joe, you're doing amazing. You're getting really good at it, honestly.
I appreciate you saying that, Ryan. Thank you. But yeah, and you're also right, Super Neon Blue. Some people just be oppressive. Maybe just hang out with people who you don't naturally offend. And that, yes, is true. And then sometimes it's also very hard because sometimes you're related, you know?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's true. That can be the case.
Yep. And so anyway, but yeah, great topic. Oh my gosh. Darkwing, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you sending us this. What's this? If a person reacts poorly to me just being myself, I may feel guilty or upset. But if that same person reacts poorly to someone I respect just by being themselves, I lose respect for the person who's reacting poorly. I gotcha. Yeah, and that goes to what was it? You said something. If you imagine someone else doing what you did, or if you imagine someone else in that situation, if you kind of set yourself aside and look at it from a third party perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like if I was looking at this situation, I wasn't personally involved. Like, how would I see this?
Yeah.
Right?
Who would I? Yeah.
Oh, and then you just don't care if they react poorly to you anymore. Right on. That's a good way to be. Because once you start to figure this out, you start to figure out how people are, then you can kind of learn how to handle when they do things. Right? I almost said you can figure out how to compartmentalize somebody, but I don't think we should compartmentalize people.
Yeah, and people are changing and shifting and growing themselves. So
that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Yep.
Not all of them, but
yeah. Well, people grow and they change and all that kind of stuff, right? But we also have to learn to protect ourselves.
Yep.
Right? We have to learn that, you know, even if we have to be in proximity of somebody, if we can learn to dismiss things that they say because that's just how they are, you know, then sometimes that's the best. But yeah. Oh, I think it's important to put yourself in situations where there are a lot of different people around rather than just hanging out with one person all the time. I understand that. That one person will become your understanding of all social situations. Yes, that's very true. So be very wary of anyone who wants to monopolize you.
Yeah, that's a straight statement.
That goes into a whole bunch of crazy that I don't even want to touch right now, unless we had a topic about it.
Hang around people you look up to. Yeah, we're good-natured people. Absolutely.
Yep. Very, very good. All right, so Darkwing, thank you again. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'm glad. I think you said you needed to hear this now, so you thank your past self from back in December or September for sending this topic to us.
Thanks, Darkwing, and past Darkwing.
Yes. So
Very
yeah.
thanky.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So let's move on, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Good idea?
Yeah.
Time for a good idea, great. Bad idea? This is a good idea?
That's time for a good idea, I think. Why don't we move on to another topic?
All right, we can totally do that. We have an urgent one here from, looks like an anonymous. This is called Overlooked at Work. I'm going to go ahead and do this one. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Saule, thank you for putting that back in the chat. Oh. Yes, we need to do that. We need to remember to mention that every like 2 minutes. Go to don'tworrywednesday.com. Click the submit a topic button.
Every 2 minutes, that might be it.
Yeah. We're not professionals.
That's right.
But all right, cool. Thank you, Saule. All right, let's move on to this one. This is called Overlooked at Work, and I will put it up on the screen as soon as I get to that point here. There we go. All right. Have a large scrolling banner across the stream telling people to go to Don't Worry. Yes, that'd be cool.
Yes.
Go to don'tworrywednesday.com. Boom, boom. That's cool. I appreciate that, Saule. That's very awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Saule. You're awesome.
Because I'd be right in this deep moment. I'd be like in this deep, heartfelt moment of a topic. And go to don'tworrywednesday.com. Click the submit topic button. We're not professionals.
Yeah. That's right.
That'd be so appropriate. But all right.
I want to tell you that you can do it, and speaking of doing things, go to don'tworrywednesday.com.
Yes.
And submit a topic. What do we advertise? It's not making us any money. It's making people submit problems.
Right, exactly. We
just want to help.
Right. And sometimes just typing out the issue is super helpful anyway.
It is.
Just the act of doing that, of putting it out on words is very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Click the subscribe button. We're not professionals.
Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. All right. Cool. So this is called. What is this one called? I forgot. Overlooked at Work. And so here we go. I'll put it up on the screen, and you guys can read along with me. I have been dedicated to my role in hospitality and guest services for 1.5 years. Yet a newcomer has been immediately assigned to a high-profile shifts like buyouts and Black Friday. It's disheartening to feel undervalued and overlooked, especially when I'm capable of handling more demanding responsibilities. But I'm being relegated to less engaging tasks that make a minimal amount of money and has a minimal interaction. It feels like a personal slight because they don't think me capable of the better paying shifts. And this is from Anonymous. So Anonymous, thank you. This is a tough situation. I definitely know what this feels like. To kind of feel like you're being held down, right? Like you're working at this place of employment and you just can't move on. You can't move forward. It seems like you're always getting the crummy shifts, right? And anytime you ask for something, they kind of look at you like you're, like you got two heads, and then don't acknowledge that you asked for that time off or to work that shift or whatever, right? And so there could be a lot of things at play here. Workplace politics is really, really tough. And it's really, really weird also because, especially you're talking hospitality, guest services. So I'm not sure if that's hotel or restaurant or some kind of service industry thing where you're dealing with customers. A lot of times, people who end up in the management positions of those were really good at, the guest services, But we always end up getting promoted to the place where we are the least effective.
You
know what I mean? Just because somebody's good at guest services or with customer service or whatever doesn't mean they're going to be a good manager. Right? And so they may be a little bit stressed about that situation, as possible. Or maybe there's some kind of vendetta they have against you. Maybe they just don't even notice. Maybe they're trying to save money, and so they give newer people these shifts. I've also been in the case where they're trying to get me to quit. And so they make my job really, really hard, and really unaccommodating because they want me to quit. And there might be all kinds of reasons for that. They might want me to quit because they feel like they're paying me too much. This was something that happened. I've been through this, and I've seen other people go through this, where a workplace doesn't want to fire you because they don't want to pay you unemployment. So they want you to quit. Right? So what they're going to do, instead of confronting you, disciplining, whatever, doing all this kind of stuff, they just want you to quit. So they're just going to make your job feel really, really uncomfortable and make it really, really difficult for you. So then you quit on your own accord, and then they don't have to pay you unemployment. There's all these crazy things that happen in workplace. And it's sometimes part of being an employee. And I'm sorry, it can be a really crappy spot to be in. So I don't know, that we can go through a few scenarios here, Anonymous, and hopefully we can help give you a little bit of hope in this situation, because just because your job is this way doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're unqualified. It doesn't mean any of that. It doesn't mean that you're not worth more than how they're treating you and how they're paying you. Because you are. You are absolutely priceless. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, and I'm going to let him talk about this, because he's always been really good at filling people with hope, especially in the midst of a hopeless situation. So, Ryan, I'm giving it to you.
All right, I'll do my best to fulfill that.
What's that?
Yeah, good luck me. I said I'll do my best to fulfill that. Good luck me.
Fulfill it. Good luck to you. Well, you're gonna do great.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Joe. Anonymous, one thing I think about immediately is, from your bosses or your hiring agency's perspective, whatever it is, right? It's sort of like they're probably not really thinking about you. They don't consider you as like, they don't look at everybody that they have and consider, what are they really good at? What have they excelled at? What, can we move them up, etc. People aren't thinking those thoughts. Generally, the people are thinking, well, we need this position filled, right? They're not thinking who can fill it that's within our department already, though they might. A lot of times they're thinking, I'm just going to give you a quick example. They look at you, they see your position is important to them, and they need it continuing to be filled. So they're going to leave you where you're at. Okay? And then they're going to say, okay, but we also need this other position filled, right? So we can either A, train someone else to fill your position and then also train you to fill the next position, or just do one training cycle and fill this position with this random other person that's never worked here before, right? Or this new person that's already being trained, why not just you know what? No, we have a different position that needs to be filled that's more important. Can you come over here? Rather than taking you out of your job that you're already doing well at. So when you're performing well at your job, they're going to want you to stay there. they're not considering you as a human being and how much money you're making, how much more potential you have than the current job you're working. They don't know any of that. Mm-hmm. They're just looking at the job that needs to be done and the entity, not even like the person, but just the agent, the entity that is fulfilling that job role, right? So my point is, yeah, they're not looking at you. They don't know your potential. They're not really caring enough to look. And it's not that they're bad people. It's that the way that employment usually works and jobs usually work is that they see tasks that need to get done, and they take humans, which to them could essentially be robots, and fill those positions up that get those tasks done. They probably aren't seeing you as the person. Subinyan Blue said, I would just ask personally. And I agree. I mean, they aren't going to see you as a human being willing to fill those positions unless you make them aware of that, right, Anonymous? And maybe you have. Maybe you have made them aware of that. Maybe you've confronted them and said, hey, you know what? I'm currently in this position, but I feel like I could do so much more for you guys. Is there any way I could go into this other position? I'd like to do that. Maybe you have said that. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you've made it clear that you're underwhelmed with where you're at. Maybe you haven't made it clear. Either way, most people who are delegating these tasks, they don't really care about whether you're underwhelmed or overwhelmed or any of that. They only care, are the tasks getting done in the right way? And as long as you perform your tasks and you get them done efficiently, as you have been, they're not going to think much outside of that. Mm. The only time they're going to notice anything is when you do things wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Because then they're in trouble and it's them who is at stake. So now they're actually concerned about their own personhood. And then finally personhood comes into matters, right? They don't think about you as a person. They think only about themselves as a person. That's maybe not your bosses. Maybe it's not. But I can tell you from my own experience and from the experience of many, that tends to be the experience that people are having, the outlook that people have. People see tasks, not people. People see the tasks, not the people, the person, the stress of that person or the strengths of that person or the weaknesses of that person. They don't really take those into consideration most of the times. The only time they even think about those for a second is when they're hiring somebody and they're trying to pick between like 4 different people, right? And even then, they just pick the one that they felt most comfortable or happy being around. And that's it. Mm-hmm. So it's a really awful place to be where you're at. And it does feel pointed, even if it's not. And chances are it's not personal. It's likely not a personal slight. Right? But I don't know your position. You might have arguments to my statements, and that's fine if you do. You know your situation better than I do, right? Maybe they are making personal slights. Maybe it's like Joe said. Maybe they're trying to get you to quit. But I can't know that. All I can say is what I've said on that behalf, on my own experiences and experiences that I've seen. But here's maybe the hopeful side of things, okay? You don't have to stay where you're at. Mm-hmm. If they're not loyal to you, you don't have to be loyal to them. And I know that maybe you don't want to go find a new job, but maybe this is the push you need emotionally to start thinking about getting something that's actually like worth your efforts, worth your skill level. Because if you feel underwhelmed with where you're at right now, if you feel like you're not giving it everything you could be because there's not enough there for you to do, and you feel like you could, like, you want to be more providing, then find somewhere that you can be. If the company you're working for is not going to make that happen for you, sometimes they can't make that happen. Sometimes they can. Sometimes you're just overlooked. Mm-hmm. I would say sometimes you got to take life in your own hands. As an employee, it's a little bit scary because, I mean, no matter what you do, whether you're self-employed or an employee or a business owner, whatever, there's things to be afraid of. There's things to things that can be worrisome and stressful, no matter where you are. Like even as CEO, right? You're like, oh, these guys with all the money, they're all padded. They have nothing to worry about. Well, sure they do. And a lot of them make decisions that are the safe decisions of their company instead of the risky ones that'll actually get them moving. But they realize, like, we've got 500,000 employees. Do I want to take this risk and risk putting out a bunch of people's jobs because it fails? Or do I want to play it safe, take it easy, not grow much, but at least everybody's job is a little bit more secure. And it's like, well, why would they risk those things? Well, maybe they do enough risking that suddenly you make twice the income you make right now, right? Like CEOs have things and decisions to make too, right? My point isn't to say, the point of me saying this is, I guess, everybody has, no matter what position you're in, you've got things to face. And your current position as an employee, the unfortunate thing is you don't get to decide what you do for the day, really. I mean, you kind of do, but you don't. You don't get to decide when you work. Maybe you get, like, you kind of get to decide your hours a little bit, but you have to come in, you have to work it, right? You don't get to decide your lifestyle because you don't get to decide your income. You don't get to decide what kind of food you eat, therefore, or how many times you go out in a month. You don't get to decide a lot of things because you're an employee. And employees don't make decisions. They don't get to pick where they're at the company, what they're working on in the company. They also don't get to pick how much money they make. I'm not trying to tell you, oh, so just go be self-employed. Maybe that's not something you're interested in. And if you're not, that's totally fine. I wouldn't really suggest anybody be self-employed unless it's like they're super passionate about it, because it's a risky business.
Yeah.
You put a lot on the line and it's not safe, right? It's not secure. Being an employee gives you some amount of security because there's a promise of a paycheck and a promise of work. And that's the benefit to being employed, right? That's the employee status. You get the ability to have money, a set amount of money every month that's going to be about consistent, roughly, right? You have work to do, etc. But you don't get to make the decisions. On the other hand, you could be the kind of person that makes the decisions and you don't really have money, or sometimes you do have a lot of it and sometimes you have none of it, and it's all over the place and there's no security there, right? So my point isn't to say, go be self-employed. Instead, my point is to say, if you don't like where you're at because you want to make more decisions, like you want things to be better. You're in a position where you're like, yeah, I have some security, but it's not secure enough. I need more money. Like literally, I can't pay my bills. And it's not like I can downgrade my house, or it's not like I can just buy less groceries and get away with that. I've got a family to feed here. You're going to need that security. And so it's like, yeah, what you're at right now, you need choices. But you need to make those choices happen. So only you can do that. You can't rely on your company to figure it out for you what would be better for you. Because your company is, a lot of times, whatever company you're employed at, most companies, they're not thinking about how they can make things better for you. They're thinking about how can they make things better for their company, for maybe sometimes their own income, but generally not other people's. Right? There are exceptions to that rule. There are companies out there that care. There are. There really are. It's not common, but there are, and it's beautiful. I would suggest, if this is where you're at and this is how you feel about it, you have to make something happen. And so either talk about it with people that are higher up that can make actual choices about where you're going to be. People who can actually decide on where you are going to be, right? Not other employees who are about your level or can't make those decisions happen. You have to go to the people that can make something happen, who can actually choose where people are at in their company and talk to them directly. Or change your position. As in, get a different job.
Mm-hmm.
Find a different company. Find a company that will hear you out. Find a company that's offering what you're looking for. You know, you might just find like, oh, I found this company. It does basically the same stuff I was wanting to do that this other position filled. And, you know, it's slightly different, but I make way more pay here. Why wouldn't I do this? I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, and I know that it sounds simple because, right, sometimes it takes like a couple months to find a job. Maybe it takes a year to find a job. Mm-hmm. But it's much more important to start trying to find one so that you have some choice over your life. At least in this regard, where you feel like you're being overlooked and like under I don't want to say underutilized, but you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that you want a little bit more control over that department, so take control over that. You know, and I know that's not easy, and it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some strength, take some courage because you're like, but what if I go and talk to higher management, someone's offended, they report me to PR or whatever it is, and then suddenly I'm kicked out of my job and I have to quit, or I have to, or they make my job worse and they're trying to force me to quit, or they fire me or whatever, and then now I don't have a job for who knows how long, you know, and that's scary. My answer to that is, do you want choice or not? Do you want, like, are you happy or are you not happy? Like, everything with any opportunity is a risk. Yeah, and if you're fired for asking for a better position, right? That's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And that's not the kind of company you want to be serving anyways.
Right.
Like so don't be afraid. And I don't mean just to bring it up and be like, hey, can I have a pay raise or can I do something, whatever? You know, I don't like have an honest conversation with someone. Mm-hmm. Talk to them. Mm-hmm. Like find the higher ups and have legitimate conversations with them. I know that sounds scary. That'd be hard. They're just human beings too, with limited freedoms in their own positions too. Mm-hmm. And a certain degree of satisfaction and unsatisfaction with where they're at in the company too, a lot of the times. So they might feel you. They might be like, yeah, well, you know, if you want to step up and do more and you're like the kind of person that's going to get things done and you've already showcased that, then why not? You know, we want people around and we want to reward people who are trying hard and trying to make things happen for the company. And, you know, we want that kind of person around and you have a good attitude. So like, why wouldn't we hire you to this higher position? Make it known, befriend someone, and then you have opportunity. It's not that risky. And it's not that scary when you realize they're just human beings and you're like, oh no, this is a human being that has power over me and my position and how much I'm paid and it's blah, blah, blah. It's like even less reason to not be their friend. Mm. Like even more reason to be their friend. If they're the ones that determine your position, how much you get paid, whether you're fired or not, that's definitely the person you want to be friends with. So we go be friends with them. Mm-hmm. Go be friends with them. And you might be like, well, I already tried that and they refused to be my friend and they hate me. Well, then now you know where you're at and now you know why you're there. And so it's time to be like, okay, let's go somewhere else then. Because this person is going to lord this over me until they get fired. Which maybe they should be fired. You know, and then you just go higher up. You talk to the CEO and you like make friends with the CEO. Like literally, I know people who've done that. Joe has done
that. Wait, what did I do? I was just reading the chat.
Befriend the CEO of the company. Yeah. It makes a big difference. Don't be afraid to do that. Mm-hmm. It's like they're human beings too. It's like, well, I don't know how to get a hold of them. I don't know. Okay, that's fair. Maybe you don't. Maybe they're unavailable. But maybe you can. Maybe if you just look into it enough, you'll find yourself being able to do that. Everything I'm saying is, it's hard. I know all this is hard. But security, if your fear is losing security, I want to impart this on you. we weren't put here for the sake of security. Mm-hmm. We weren't put on this earth to be secure. That's self-evident. You look at the entirety of the animal kingdom, right? We weren't put here for our security. We're put here to make things happen. Mm-hmm. And if things aren't happening for you, you've got bigger passions in life. You got things that you can apply yourself to and make better things happen. That's what I want for you. That's more important than security. Security at best is a stepping stone to your greatest endeavors, right? Security at best, security utilized at its best form, is merely a stepping stone that at any point in time can be taken out from you. But you, regardless of it, can still climb. Because you can have a few missing pieces to your staircase and still climb up, right? It's a little bit scary, but it can happen. So my point is, if it comes down to the fear of security or anything like that, just keep those thoughts in mind. You have greater things to do and greater things to worry about, I think, even if it's like intense. Don't chase after security, because that's not the essence of life, and it's not why we're here. It's not good. It's not necessarily even healthy at times.
Right.
I understand the importance. I understand it's like you've got human lives at stake, etc. That will always be the case, and security is always an illusion, because at any point in time, someone can fire you. A whole job district can be shut down by the government. Like, you work in coal, and then all of a sudden the government's like, by the way, we're not doing coal anymore, and they shut you down. You're like, wait, I thought I was secure here. No, you're not. You're not secure anywhere. And that's not to be scary. That's to be realistic and know that. Therefore, just chase what you know you can do, and that is good. Don't worry about that to the point where you're afraid to take action, right? Don't worry about security so much that you're afraid to take action, because what you're here to do is take action. Mm-hmm. And that's just, yeah, that's an illusion that it's like an anxiety. It's not real yet, So anyways, that's what I have to say on all of that. I know it's a very different perspective than most of society, and that's okay. Anonymous, you're awesome. Thank you for posting this, and I hope you can find yourself in a position, whether it be in a new job or in this job, talking to someone, however you get there, where you can apply yourself and feel good about it. Or you can make enough money where you're like, I'm actually satisfied with this amount of income. Thank you. That's really nice. Mm-hmm. Like, I actually have enough money. I can kind of support the things that I really am seeing other people doing and supporting them do that. That's a really lovely place to be. It's like, I hope you can find that. Mm-hmm. But however life goes, I wish the very best for you. So, Joe, I'm going to get over to you. See what you have to say on this.
All right. I agree with you, Ryan.
Great. All right, next topic.
And I love
yeah. By the way, submit your stuff, don'tworrywednesday.com.
Yeah, right, we're not professionals.
We're not professionals.
And welcome, Raindraws. Great to see you.
Yeah, welcome.
So I love what you were getting at about security, because security is a myth. It's something we crave, it's something we want, but it's not. Mm-hmm. It's not really real.
It's scary that it's not real, but it's not real. Mm-hmm. It's the reality.
Right. So what we need to pursue is freedom instead of security. Because if we just pursue security, we end up in maximum security. Which is the opposite of freedom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We don't, it's true. You're right. Because so we need to really it's really secure. Yeah, you're right. But you have no freedom whatsoever. You can't do what you want. right? And that's kind of how that is. We pursue security. We want security. We want this secure job. We want this secure income, all this kind of stuff. And they're all a myth, right? The best thing we can do is pursue freedom and to pursue achievement. And security kind of comes along in a way. We're never, ever really 100% secure, but we can make ourselves be in a really good spot so we know how to handle things as they come at us. And we can set ourselves up so we have resources to handle those things that come at us, right? Mm-hmm. So, you should be, wait, you'll go to prison? Hero, I'm not saying you're going to go to prison. And you should be fixing your CV, at the moment. You're right, Super Neon Blue. It is maximum security to be in prison, right? But see, that's what happens. The more and more secure we try to be, the less and less free we are. It's true. And you're kind of dealing with that here, Anonymous, in this topic, at this company you're working for. I have a feeling like you're feeling good about this company that you're in. You're feeling good about the job you have, but you want it to be secure, and you want to move forward, and you want to get a better paying job, and you want to have the better shifts, and those all are within this company, and you see them available, and it's like, man, if I could just get this to do this, what's happening is, in order to get those things, you'll have to trade more and more of your freedom away. But I like what Ryan was saying. Maybe you need to find a different job. Here's the thing. Here's one of the things I've noticed about people in general. Now, Ryan's absolutely right. You should try to make friends. You should try and have good people skills. You should try and get along well with the people you're working with all across the board. I would highly, highly recommend a book called How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People by Les Giblin. How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People by Les Giblin. Because what that does is that's going to teach you the ins and outs of human nature and help you dance with human nature. So then you're not, because you don't want to become somebody's friend to use them to climb a corporate ladder. Or to get a better station in life. Because then you're just using somebody, and then it goes against, people kind of feel it. You want to do it genuinely, not in order to advance yourself. But what that does is when you have good relationships with your workmates, whether they're your managers or your CEO or your district managers or even just your other coworkers that are at the same level as you, the better relationships you can have, the better you're going to do at that job. I can almost 100% guarantee it, unless there's something weird going on at that job, which there could be. And I think it was Darkwing. Yes, Darkwing says, the things I've noticed is it's not really about the skill with some people. It's about the connections. Mm-hmm. It might be that they have a family member that they're putting in this position. It might be that they have a friend that they're putting in these positions, right? Whoever's making these decisions has, one of their cousins needed a job, and so they put them in this spot, right? And they're their cousin, so they give them the perks and the fluff pillow and the whatever, Mm-hmm. So there is a little bit of that. Another thing that shackles, this is going to be really, really controversial, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get blowback. I just about guarantee it. But one of the things that shackles performance and makes this type of situation happen over and over and over again is DEI. Ryan, would you disagree?
I won't disagree.
Okay. And I know that's probably going to get some blowback. DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is basically saying, it's this idea that we need to have a certain amount of people of different races, of different sexual orientations, of all these kind of different things. And so we have to have this diverse workplace. And so what happens is then the hiring and promotion becomes less and less about performance and skill and more about what box you fit into as far as race, gender, sexual orientation, all these kinds of different things. It's not job performance that's dictating how you're going to rise.
This is not a new thing. It's been around for
it used to be called affirmative action.
Yeah, I was gonna say it went by a different name before, but now we call it DEI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it used to be called affirmative action.
Yep. And what that does is it makes it so people who are less qualified move up the ladder faster because of a race or gender or sexual orientation or whatever it is, right? And to me, that's racist. Because then you're making a decision based on race or based on whatever, based on some other factor, right?
Yeah, rather than the ability to perform.
Exactly. And so what happens is people like you, Anonymous, that are working hard, that are qualified, that are wanting to move and going all that kind of stuff, they get shafted out of their opportunity for someone who's less qualified. And that's a real shame, right? Now, I've seen some reports that DEI is getting rolled back in a lot of places, like they're doing less and less. Now, here's the thing. It shouldn't matter your race or your gender or your sexual orientation. None of that should matter at all. What should matter is your ability to do the job, right? Or your ability to learn how to do the job and your qualifications. That should be it. All this other stuff is just a mess, right? Because then what it does is it robs the qualified person of moving in the direction that they want to go, right? So anyway, what's this, Saule? The problem with DEI is it's let us not be racist or sexist by actively being racist and sexist. Yes, you're right. Right on. Okay. You thought there was no romance in the workplace? There better not be, but there is.
Of course there is, guys. People are humans. People are human beings. Of course it's going to happen.
Yep. All kinds of stuff.
I remember
watch what's the show? The IT Crowd. Episode 1.
So good.
What you find is very sexy people here having affairs.
Yes. Oh my gosh, what a show. That's actually one of the best sitcoms ever.
It is.
Ridiculous, though.
Yeah.
100% ridiculous.
Anyway, what were you saying, Ryan? I'm sorry. I totally cut you off.
Oh, I was just saying, I was just going to come in with another controversial opinion. We're not here to be controversial, we're not necessarily usually controversial, but I don't like the whole blah, blah, blah in the workplace. Like, keep no personal life in the workplace. Keep your work to your workplace. Your work life is your work life. Your personal life is your personal life. Keep them separate. That sort of thing. I really don't like that because to me, it's like you've just dehumanized everybody in your workplace and you don't see them as people anymore. You see them as I don't know, robots, basically. It's like these people have actual things going on at home that's going to impede on their stress levels. Like they have actual things going on in their life that are great and worth rejoicing about. In fact, if you make a personal connection with your co-employees, usually you do better job at working together because you have these synchronization. Like you get each other, you understand what each other mean when you say sentences differently from each other, but you know what each other mean because you've actually made you've made personal connections with the person. You've put effort into your relationships with that person. And so I think it's super important to treat people as people and to not just say, act like a robot when you're at work and don't keep everything personal, leave it out. I think there are certain things, yes, that okay, we don't need to be talking about that right now at a workplace. Yes, of course. But you know what happens? Those are the only things that people talk about at the workplace.
Yeah.
I used to work at Taco Bell, and the amount of trash that people would say But then you start talking about something that's like personal, be like, oh no, personal stuff at workplace. Like you literally are just talking about literal like things you do at the bar and then at home afterwards. And like, let's not, what are you talking about? You're such a hypocrite. So anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a good night, Pear.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
It was great to have you here. Great to have you in the chat again, Pear.
Yeah, thank you, Pear.
Yep. Have a great night.
Appreciate that.
So anyway, yeah, Ryan, you're right on. But Saule, you ask a really good, important question. I never understood why being in relationships with people you work with is a problem. And if you're talking about romantic relationships, there's really, most of the time it's not a problem. Okay. However,
becomes a problem when
it's like a manager and somebody below them or whatever, right? Because then they're going to get special treatment. There's going to be some kind of special treatment, right? Because how do you totally, disconnect?
Yeah. People can't.
And how do you be fair to someone who's more qualified and tell the person that you really, really like or that you're in a relationship with that they're not as qualified? Now, I'm convinced that, Ryan, if you and your bride were in this type of situation, you both would be understanding about, okay, so-and-so's more qualified, we're going to give them the position, right?
Sure.
Because you guys are pretty understanding people. Most people are not like that.
Right.
Most people would be like, but wait a minute. I'm your bae. You're supposed to.
Yeah. Your bae. I love that joke. I never heard you say that. That's great. That's so funny.
Exactly. It's like, but what do you mean you're not going to give me that position? What do you mean you're not going to roll out the red carpet for me at this place? Blah, 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 blah. And there might be like a situation where the person's a gold digger in the way that they're like trying to work their way up the ladder of employment by being in a relationship with a manager.
That is not worth.
Because people are conniving.
Yeah, I forget about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Can't Bay get a raise? Exactly, hero.
You guys.
Exactly. And if not, no relations for you.
I'm not going to cook you pudding on your birthday.
I'm going to shave my head.
I'll never shave my arms or my legs ever again.
That's right.
That's right.
Hey, who's this Gunk person all of a sudden? Hey, Gunk.
Gunk's awesome. Yeah.
This is the first time I think I've seen you in the Don't Worry Wednesday chat. Welcome. They say being in relationships with people you work with distract you, yet I feel it's the opposite. You're actively more aware. It's like a wake-up call. Sometimes, yes, absolutely. I feel like under the circumstance of like a different power dynamic for a work relationship, it depends on the people itself. Personally, I feel like the best option is to support, not give it out free. I'm trying to understand what that means. The best option is support, not give it out for free. It's interesting though, because
or maybe they're talking about the if it's a power dynamic, they're talking about power. So not give power out for free, but give support.
Support them instead of giving it totally. Okay, yes. Okay, I can, if that's what you mean. If Super Neon Blue described it well, then yes, I would totally agree with that. Support, but not give it out for free. But here's the thing. I mean, I come from a couple relationships where there were people in there that were very, very manipulative.
Okay, that's what I thought, Gunk. Yeah.
Like, I would support that person in their work, like answering questions, but I would not give them a raise. Okay, yeah. Yep, absolutely. If you need a raise, you earn it, right? All right, so anyway, Anonymous. We've gone all kinds of ways about how this might be happening and why it might be happening and what. But okay, so now what do you do? Right? One thing I've learned about human nature is the person that's in charge, the person that's in power in an interaction, the person that has the most control of the situation is the person willing to walk away.
Yeah.
Happens in sales, happens in relationships, happens in families, happens in human dynamic. The person less attached to the outcome of that person and them being together or whatever, or being in that situation, the person less attached to that situation has more power in that situation. And I know, it's weird because it makes us transactional. It makes us feel like all person is a thing and it's a transaction, blah, 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 blah. I get it, but that's human nature. I've seen it happen so many times where I've gotten attached to an idea of having a certain job or having a certain friendship or having a certain business relationship or having a certain thing. And I get attached to this idea and I want to do everything I can to make it happen. And so I try really hard. And then what happens is it all falls apart and explodes in my face. And even if it happens, even if it comes together, it's a really crappy situation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because then what happens is they see that I need it, that I want it, that I crave it, that all this stuff, and then they use that to their advantage. Because we're people, and we do this kind of stuff to each other. It's really crazy. So, here's what you do. Go look for another job. Whether you decide to leave this place or not, I'm not telling you to leave your current place of employment. I'm saying find another job. Because right now, you being in the position of having a job is the best place to get hired at a new job. It's much harder to get hired at a new job when you have no job. And that's if you want to play this job game, right? You could also decide to start a business. Maybe something, you want to be a Twitch streamer. You want to be a YouTuber. You want to be a musician. You can start doing that while you work this job, but find something to do that's your way out of this job. Because the less attached you are to that job, the more they're going to want to keep you. Because that's human nature, right? We talked. The person who's more in control of the situation is the person willing to walk away. And the more you go find a different job or build your own business on the side or do something that is going to control you, that you no longer need them, the more power you have and the more security you feel. Because you're like, I don't even need them. Like, what? I'm just doing this now for, because I need the money right now. This money is a little bit nice. I remember that happening to me a few times where I've only been fired from a job twice.
Out of many jobs, by the way.
I've had a lot of jobs. I've only been fired twice. And both times it was working for my in-laws and I got fired by my wife who was managing the company. She's now my ex-wife, right? But anyway, but I was working for them and I was working part-time. I got fired. She fired me. And then they hired me again and fired me again.
That's so funny.
Every other time I've never been fired. But part of that is but I've quit lots of jobs because I've found other things to do, whether it's a job or I started a business or whatever. I've moved beyond that. And it's so crazy. The closer you get to achieving the next step in the thing, it's like the more they want to keep you. It's wild. They kind of feel you pulling away. They kind of feel you, you're going in a new direction, and then it's like, okay, I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. Now here's the thing. Most of the time, they would be happy to have you come back. They want you to come back. But if you ever look like you're needy needing them, then the table flips around again. Because it's like whoever is needing the other is the less attractive one. The one who's willing and able to walk away is the more attractive one. Isn't that funny how that works?
Mm-hmm.
But it's basic psychology, basic human nature. It's just kind of how it is. But yeah, so I would encourage you, Anonymous, find another job, start applying other places, look for another job, find something. Maybe you find something right in the field in your same town. Different company, maybe better pay. Who knows? Maybe better situation. But find something else to do. And work towards that. And then you always kind of have it in your back pocket. Right? And if things get to the point where they're no longer, like you can't sustain it anymore at this place, you can't handle it anymore, you have that other one to go to. Right? And you may decide to leave. Not gonna lie, it sounds like we're talking about a romantic relationship. It works in romance too. It's the same type of deal. It's not how romance is supposed to be, so I'm told. But that's how, like in the dating world, I know that it works that way too. Right? Yeah. Like if you're dating somebody,
it is not healthy.
It's not healthy. But it definitely works in buying a car. Whoever's more willing to walk away from the deal is the one who has the most power. It's pretty crazy. But anyway, so I would definitely, start looking for a different job. You'll feel more confident. You'll feel more secure. And they might sweeten the deal, especially if they find out, oh, this person that you are really, really important to the company, and then you give them your 2-week notice. Say I found another job. You got to be willing to go forward and go to that other job. If you're going to put your 2 weeks in, don't do it as a tactic to keep your job at the other one, right? You got to be ready to go. But I've seen it happen where people put their 2 weeks in and then all of a sudden they get a raise. And they get a better offer because it's like, oh, we can't lose this person. We got to keep them. And so now they're ready to go. And, so we better sweeten the deal if we're going to keep them. I've seen that happen. But I've also seen it happen where it doesn't work that way. And then you just end up going to the other job anyway. So you got to be ready to do that. Whoops, too late, LOL. Anyway, Anonymous, do that. So so here's the things to do. If you read, find How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People by Les Giblin. It'll teach you human nature. So then you can learn how to, wherever you go, you're going to have good relationships, good mutual relationships, not ones where you're using another person, but actually good relationships with people. Because having good relationships in your workplace is very, very important. And I'm not talking about you have romantic relationships with all your coworkers. No, that's not what I'm saying. Good friendships, good personal relationships with these people, right? That helps everywhere you go, no matter what job you get. Now, in this situation, you're starting to see some stuff happening in this job that doesn't make you feel very good for whatever reason it's happening. Nepotism, DEI, something just weird with a manager, maybe, whatever. Maybe you can ask your manager what's going on. Hey, I'm asking about this. So if they kind of give you any kind of blow off response, then I would definitely look for a job immediately. because that's not a healthy place for you to be. If they're going to just disregard your question, I think it was Super Neon Blue who said that in the chat. That if you ask for a raise and they fire you, you didn't want that job anyway. It's very true. If you ask what's going on, like you feeling slighted, you feeling like, hey, I feel like I'm qualified for this. If they say, well, here's the reason why, because we've noticed this and this and this from you. We noticed this and this from another person. It sounds reasonable and fair. Then maybe there's something for you to take from that and improve your job performance. There might be improvement in your job performance that needs to happen. It's definitely possible. I know that that's happened for me, and it was a blind spot for me. Like, I didn't realize.
Yeah, you can't see it until someone else points it out a lot of times.
But they had to explain it to me, right? And so keep an open mind. It's okay. But if they're just dismissive and all this kind of stuff and whatever, and they get all weird, then you don't want to work there anyway. No matter how secure it feels, no matter how much your parents and your friends and everybody says, oh, that's such a great job with such a great company. It's so secure. And it's got a 401k and health insurance. Blah, 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 blah. All that. Don't. It might be time to jump. And so you can go find something else. Go search for another job. Start a business on the side. Do whatever. But make it so you're not as dependent on this job that you feel mistreated as. And then be willing to jump when the time's right. Mm-hmm. Mocking voice was great.
Mm-hmm. Highlight of the show.
Hey, you know what? I've experienced this, right? We have things so backwards. It's crazy. But I could talk for days about how the industrial age and all that screwed up our system of how we make money and how we earn and all this kind of stuff. Right? Yeah. It's so ridiculous. And like we value security so much, but it's just not even a thing. It's not real. And I love that, Ryan, you hit on that. Because it's true. I know people who have had what they thought was the most secure of jobs. Oh my gosh, this is so great. It's in a great industry. It's so secure, blah, 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 blah. And then they get fired. They didn't get a severance package that they were because, some kind of political intercompany thing, like they just didn't honor what they said the severance package was supposed to be. And then they're left with nothing. They lose their house. They move back in with their parents, blah, 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 all these things that happen, right? But they were so loyal to this job. And then the job just crapped on them. So that even that isn't real security. I would say your security is in your performance, your ability to perform to perform at a job, your ability with people, and the options you set up for yourself, whether it's other jobs that you have ready to go or businesses that you set up. But those aren't real security either. That's learning how to adapt to freedom.
Mm-hmm.
My trauma is coming back. Gunk says, there is a reason why we say, listen to advice, not obey, follow people's advice. You can listen to someone tell you have a great job and realize, wait, I don't actually enjoy it and I should quit. That's absolutely true, Gunk. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's good to listen to people. But we also have to understand they might not always be right. And it's okay. I'm not always right. Ask Ryan's brother. He'll tell you.
Oh, that's nice. That's funny. Oh, that's funny. That's a great night. My light over for that one.
Yeah.
So funny.
So anyway, Anonymous, here's the thing. I want to try and help you have some hope. There's actions and steps you can take. There are. All is not lost. And this job isn't the end all be all for you. Doesn't have to be. There's opportunity all around you. But we close our eyes to it when we seek security. When we seek that secure thing in that one job we have or in that relationship or whatever, we miss the opportunities that are all around us. And we become stagnant, and we don't learn, and we don't grow, and we don't do any of those things. And then we just try and hold on to what we have.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then when we don't grow, then then we start to go backwards, because you're either going forwards or you're going backwards. You don't ever really get to sit still in life. And sometimes backward steps are actually big leaps forward. They just are disguised as steps backward. Weird. But yep, you don't have to do something you don't want to just to please others. Absolutely. Absolutely. They might not see it the way you see it. It's good to take into account what they say, but understand you can grow. And it's okay. You're in an okay spot. But what you're experiencing is not new. It's not a new phenomenon in the world. I'm sorry you're experiencing it. I'm sorry that you're going through this, because it stinks. And I've been there before. Maybe not exactly your situation, but I've been in similar ones. But anyway. Anonymous, you're awesome. Thank you for the topic. Ryan, do you have anything else?
I think we've gone on for a while, and I think, Joe, you said so many great things. I do want to just very briefly touch on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe already spent a lot of time on this, but, he said it's the person who is willing to basically leave anything that has a lot of the power a lot of times. And it's for a really important reason, and it ties right into what we've been talking about with basically being an employee means that you are not in control, right? Of your pay, of your lifestyle, of your whatever. And we're not saying don't be an employee. We're just here's the interesting phenomena. If you're after security, you can look at the deadly sins, right? Like greed. What is greed? It's being a slave to material goods. Material goods, they're good. But when you make yourself a slave to them, you no longer have full control over your life.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have control over all the scenarios because you're so attached and clingy to material goods like money, right? That's greedy, right? That's what greed is. That's why it's so self-destructive. That's why it's a, quote, a deadly sin, right? That's true with all of the deadly sins. You can go to any one of them and say, well, that's being a slave to ego. That one's being a slave to emotions, and you lose all emotional control, and you're wrathful, and you hurt people, and it's like, man, that's nuts, right? So when you have the ability to just shed it off, just say, you know what, I don't need these things. I can be a good person. I can apply myself and do good no matter where I go.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of person I am.
Mm-hmm.
That is huge.
Yes.
That's freedom.
Yes.
And you're like, I can apply myself anywhere, and I'm going to do an amazing job. Watch me. You've got confidence, you've got that ability, and that comes from shedding off all of these things that you don't need to be a slave to. So we aren't accusing you at all of being a slave to security. We just talked about it a lot because it is a common holdup for most people in this world right now. When it comes to money, when it comes to their job and their status, when it comes to being an employee in that position, that tends to be the common problem, so to speak. And we aren't accusing you of that. We're just making suggestions that if you are experiencing that, here's a lot of advice. If you know someone who's experiencing that, here's a lot of advice for you. If you have any kind of tendency towards it, hopefully this is helpful. Now, again, you might not care at all. You'd be like, you know what? If I get fired, whatever. I'm good. I'll find something else, and even if I have to walk the streets for a few days, oh well, whatever. I can still do so much good with who I am. It kind of doesn't matter. And honestly, it doesn't really matter because I can do so much good.
Yeah.
And if you have that kind of attitude, it will no longer be a question of whether you can make friends with your CEO. Like, you're just like, my CEO should know this stuff that's going on in like lower company. I have some helpful tips for them that like might make things better. I could save them like $1 million. My brother, I'm not even joking. My brother kind of has this attitude, and he got employed by a company. And after his first year of working, he created a macro program. He's not even like a programmer or anything. They're working on the computers all the time. He created a macro. That macro just does a bunch of series of tasks for you really quickly. And he implemented it on his own computer. And then he implemented it on other people's computer, basically. Ended up getting raises because he saved the company like $2-3 million or something. Mm-hmm. They didn't pay him any money extra, really. I mean, they gave him a higher paying job position, but it's not like, hey guys, I saved you like $5 million. You want to give me like 1 million maybe? Of course they didn't, right? But point is, if you are free, if you aren't concerned about how like people are going to see you, you'll just start being more effective. And people will be like, dang, some people will be really prideful and hate you for it. And other people will be like, that person needs a raise, let's get him up. Because you're not in a position of being scared to act freely and actually improve things anymore. Mm-hmm. You're not afraid of just doing things the right way, mm-hmm. and making them good for the whole company. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not saying, maybe that's already where you're at, and people just are prideful where you're working, and they're not noticing you, and they're begrudgingly like having you there, and they don't want you there, and they don't like you. Then yeah, find a new company, you know. So anyways, that's all I wanted to touch on was the whole slavery kind of aspect. People become a slave to what they cling to. Mm-hmm. And so don't cling to this job.
Yeah.
Be above it. And what I mean by that is you are more important than your job. Who you are as a human being is far more important than any title you'll ever achieve or any position you'll ever work. Who you are isn't the like, I'm a doctor, you know. It's like that's something that you do and something you apply in your life. And it helps people, and that's amazing. And what you do in your job helps people, and that's amazing. Mm-hmm. Don't undersell that. But you as a human individual are worth way more than any job you could ever fill. So carry that strength with you. And so that you can, you know, figure out the best way to overcome all of these issues and that you're experiencing now. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's all I wanted to say. That's all I wanted to add.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you, Anonymous, for mm-hmm. this topic. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Best of luck to you out there.
Yes, absolutely. You can do better. You can always do better. Mm-hmm. You can always do better. Mm-hmm. And absolutely. In a lot of ways, it's up to you.
Yeah, you're awesome, Anonymous. Mm-hmm. Keep up the good work. Sounds like you're trying hard. So
yes.
Don't stop trying hard.
Keep it up. Keep it up. Absolutely. So cool. Thank you so much for the topic. Thank you guys, everybody, for hanging out with us while we went through these topics and while we hung out and had a good time. You guys are amazing. So just like Saule says in the chat, we're not professionals. The information we give is not a substitute for professional advice. We're trying to give back and support you as you're supporting us. If you'd like to send us your concern, type it out in the chat or on our website at www.don'tworrywednesday.com. Check out our website, don'tworrywednesday.com. Take a bow, you two. You take a bow, Darkwing. You had a great topic in here.
You had a great topic.
Yes, so take a bow. You're not doing it.
Am I bow?
No, I was talking to Darkwing.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. Can I take a bow of apology? This is my humble bow.
But what if the boat needs its bow? I don't want to take it.
Yeah.
Bow like this. Dab! Yes. Awesome.
You're wrong. It's great.
All right. Hey, guys, thank you so much for being here. And for those of you who are in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. Guys. Yeah.
Enjoy yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Feast.
It's my favorite holiday.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Fill yourself with food and love.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's going to be awesome. So thank you guys so much for being here. We'll see you next week on Don't Worry Wednesday. Until then, take good care of yourselves and of each other. And we will see you next time on Don't Worry Wednesday. Till then, take care. We love you guys.
Love you guys. Bye now. Peace.
Bye-bye.